to get going, let's start the conversation broadly, I think, to think about when we encounter the unknown. I mean, COVID, who could have predicted? For those of you who aren't conspiracy theorists, who could have predicted that COVID-19 would have hit us and hit us so hard? Who could have predicted the lives that have been lost, the people that have lost employment, the economic downturns, the home situations that have been so negatively impacted? Who could have predicted that? So the question I'd like to start off with to get our conversation going is to ask each one of you, Shola, Tuela, and Dr. Olajobi, how does one prepare for the unknown? I'm going to start with you, Dr. Olajobi. You're on mute, Doctor.
Sorry. Okay, so everyone should know, from childhood, and that is why even though I'm a performance coach, I do a lot of change management, but I've seen that therapy takes longer when you wait till problem comes. So I work now a lot of times with children, letting them know that life will be challenging. I work with parents too, letting them know that they should not give their kids everything they want, because life will not give them everything they want. When somebody knows that life will not give you everything you want, when challenges come, it's easier to cope. But when we live in fool's paradise, when life strikes, when it hits hard, it's going to be very tough to take your balance. So if everyone knows that life can be challenging at any time, okay, it's easier to cope. So the way to prepare is, okay, it can be tough anytime, but I'm going to be fine. It can be tough anytime, I'm going to be fine. When it gets tough, I'll keep going because I need to be tough myself. So when this is in everybody's mind, it's easier. It's not like the person will feel pain. It's not like we won't feel pain. We'll feel the pain, but it will be easier to get out of pain. That is where resilience comes in. When you are into pain, when you're pressed, you're able to go back to normal as soon as possible. When you're stretched, you're able to come back to normal as soon as possible because you know challenging times can come. That is the easiest way to prepare for tough times.
Toela, what are your thoughts?
To be very honest, before COVID, I never really prepared for tough times. I'm a kind of person who, I think I'm optimistic and try not to be a pessimist. So I'll be very honest. I never ever prepared for uncertainty. I don't like uncertainty. And now that we're in COVID, in a pandemic, I find that it hits me really hard because it's so unpredictable. And the unpredictability is what gives me stress, because I don't know what's going to happen the next month. Are we going to be on lockdown, adjusted level 3? So for me now, I try to plan, but I must say, of late, whenever I do plan, I get disappointed. And because I don't like the disappointed, I'm not planning as much. So that's where my headspace is at.
And I mean, I think a lot of people can relate to that, Toel. Shola, what are your thoughts? How have you thought about the unknown and how you prepare for that?
So again, before COVID, there is preparing before COVID, my understanding of preparing or just being ready for life challenges before COVID and now that there's COVID. Before COVID, I've always just thought, life experiences will prepare you. So your experiences, other people's experiences, and things you read about, those kind of things kind of will prepare you, and just learnings from other people's experiences, or if you've gone through it, and just building that that's mindset that allows you to mutate as required and just fit in. That's pre-COVID. But with COVID, I don't know that I can say that there's a way that you can prepare for challenging times. I personally don't know it. I consider myself someone who can, adapt and just go with the flow and figure things out as you go. But COVID has actually taught me that I don't know that there's any level of strength or there's any level of resilience that you build that prepares you for something like this, for something unknown. That's something everyone is going through at the same time. So you can't pull on someone's experience or you can't pull up your experience. It is global. And again, I think that's why this conversation is important for me. I'm learning. I'm learning more about myself through this experience. And I think that this conversation is important because we all need to know this thing. We're now going to be learning from each other's experiences. And that's why this conversation is important. I don't know that I know how I could have planned for COVID or how anyone could have planned for the uncertainty of COVID. As Doctor said, regarding building resilience, you can compress and be ready to go out again. Very valid, but I think that this has gone on a long time enough to bother people in a way that conversations have to be hard. So looking forward to this. I'm learning.
Yeah. And I mean, I think we can all relate to the specific COVID experience. Some of us would have contracted it. Some people ended up in hospital. Some people didn't make it. We all know someone, right? We either know a family member, a relative, a friend's husband, a colleague, somebody's been affected somehow. So I'd love to get a feel for the kinds of narratives that exist, and maybe Dr. Olajobi, if there's any research that you're seeing or finding around how is our world responding. I remember when I was recovering, there was very little out there. I mean, literally I depended on those who've been through it to know how to process it from a mindset perspective, from a just insecurity, anxiety, and all of those things. Do we know what's happening? Are there any insights being shared globally in Africa around how organizations, individuals are experiencing the COVID pandemic? Dr. Olajobi, we'll start with you.
Okay, okay.
You're on mute, Doctor.
Observed is that we are learning to accept the reality. It's not something. Can you hear me?
We can okay. Now. We're going to need you to start over. And you're on mute. Here we go. We can see you and hear you.
I'm sorry. So a call came in and disrupted the flow. So what I said is we are learning, and the world is getting to adapt to COVID. Like it was said, maybe like 6 months into this, some people started saying we need to learn to live with COVID. Maybe for some time. From what we've read and videos we've seen, it appears that the Spanish flu of the 1918, to 1920 or so, or thereabout, it took about 2 to 3 years. And so I, for one, got prepared for 2 to 3 years. Luckily for us in Africa, or maybe West Africa, it is not as bad as it is in Europe and America. So we are learning to cope with it. From time to time, I call my colleagues who are working in the ICU, intensive care unit, the COVID centers, to get to have a feel of what's happening. And this is the third wave for us in Nigeria. I'm not sure about what is happening in South Africa now. Yes, third too, right? Okay. So when the second wave started, and we started hearing about it, I just put a call through to my colleagues who were working in the COVID center, and they said that actually the numbers were increasing again. But then it didn't take too long, like the first wave, for people to start recovering and then to start getting discharged, because now health professionals have learned what it takes to manage COVID, at least at that level. And so people didn't die as much. Also, people didn't present as much too. But it appears that most people did not take as much precautions as they took during the first wave in Nigeria and in Lagos. Probably because people discovered that it seems maybe we're not getting so knocked down by COVID in Lagos. And so there was no reason to be wearing face mask too much. How true that is, I'm not sure. But maybe how much people went to the hospital to complain shows that maybe it wasn't so bad in Lagos, in Nigeria. But the other side is whether the health consequences were so bad or not. The economic consequences are harsh on everybody all over the world. Businesses are packed up, and some are picking up. Some are yet to pick up. I know several businesses that have not been able to pick up. So we're learning it, and it appears that we're going to learn to still live with it for some time. Hopefully, maybe just like the Spanish flu, the third wave will end it. Hopefully, that's what we're hoping. And then we're still learning. I've had 2 shots of the vaccine. I'm hoping more people will get vaccinated. And still, research is still ongoing to be sure of how efficient or how much prevention the COVID-19 can pose to COVID itself. So we're hoping that all this will materialize in success for the health sector. That's all I can say for now.
Okay. And I mean, I think it's important to frame that so people understand we are still learning. There's very little documented. It's all anecdotal to a large extent.
Yes.
And so there's a journey. There's still some uncertainty ahead of us, basically.
Yes.
Tola, have you been affected? Have you had experience? How have you seen organizations? How have you dealt with the COVID pandemic?
So the biggest trend that I've picked up is a lot of people, especially in the workplace, are either stressed or depressed. And somehow COVID seems to have, or the pandemic and the measures that governments are putting in place, seems to have exposed that, I would say, mental health. And I'm getting this from, I'm currently studying, and a lot of people in my class are burnt out. You will just ask a simple question like, how are you doing? How's everything? And the floodgates open. It's either they were attending funerals, they've been retrenched, people dealing with homeschooling and they're stressed. They also have to juggle work. So I personally myself have been burnt out, and it's also just craving that social interaction with people, where during lockdown I can't really call my friends up and just go and have a meal with them, and you're always cooped up in your house. So I must admit the trend that I'm seeing is people are, when it comes to mental health, the biggest trend is either depression or stress and high levels of anxiety. I don't want to go too much in the anxiety, but I do have a friend whom her workplace is not too open to working from home. So they would like them to come into the office, be physically present. And for her, she hasn't caught COVID, and she's petrified of catching COVID. So every time she walks into that office building, she gets anxious. Her heart starts beating, and it's a thing for her. But she's so afraid to have this discussion with her colleagues, with her managers, because they will just look at her to say she's probably overreacting, she just wants to work from home, but it really has affected her. So that's just an example of a trend that I've experienced in currently.
I can hear that. I can hear that. And you, Sholabomi?
For me, I think in Nigerian context, the trend, so it's a bit of, I think the way I'll put it is, so having to work from home, the whole impact of working from home, while it might be great for some people, in Nigeria, we have power issues, we have bad internet, and all of that expectation and still trying to deliver has been, I think, the biggest thing that, and just, that, and mix that with a bit of reduction in social life. Nigerians are very social people. We like to be social. So just that combination, it's actually, so on a worker, while I see a lot of, in the Western world and everywhere else, people want to work from home. Like Tola's friend wants to work from home. Nigeria, people want, because you're at home all day, you can't charge your laptop, or you're going to spend 3 times the amount to charge your laptop. So there's so many dynamics around it. Where I'm from, and the way it impacts people, and so that builds onto anxiety, and then you have to deliver job security. So just a combination of everything. You're not as social as you will be, and then without those amenities that help you to deliver on the job. So that the combination of the stress sensors that brings about, I'll say that's the biggest factor around here.
I think all of you have touched on. Doctor, did you want to say something?
Yes.
Oh,
so I forgot to mention that I had a friend who had COVID, very close friend. And then he called up on me. He said I will be going for COVID tests. He is also a medical personnel. He works in laboratory. He's a medical lab scientist. And then he went for the test, and he called me. I'm positive, and I'll be going for admission. And then he said, so please, whatever happens to me, take care of my family, And I'm like, I'm not sure you're going to die. I was just being hopeful, and he wasn't feeling so bad, but he was just preparing. And this is part of the thing that we don't, in maybe Nigeria, Africa, we just say, God forbid. In Nigeria, we say that a lot. But for him, it was being realistic. He didn't have any comorbidity. He didn't have any chronic illness to suggest that he has a high chance of dying. But he just felt, just in case, we can tell. Because at that time, it was last year, we had not learned so much about COVID. And we are still learning, like you said. And then he came, after 2 weeks, he was fine, and he was discharged. I also had a big brother, he's my own blood brother, who had, he didn't test positive, but he had some symptoms, some chest symptoms, respiratory symptoms, and he presented at the hospital, was tested, was negative, but the doctor suspected very, very strongly that he was a COVID survivor. Yes. And of course, when I went to see him, sometimes even the COVID test could be positive, and it could be negative. There could be false negative or false positive sometimes. And then I just had to be very careful when I went to check on him. He needed the reassurance that a member of my family who is a doctor, has seen what some other doctor had done for me, and then he feels it's okay. So I went to see him. I had so much anxiety too, even after coming back, and it was fine. So we're still learning, and we all, like you said, we've had friends or family members who have had COVID at one time or the other. And somebody wrote in that we definitely can't get prepared for COVID because we didn't even know. Still, we don't know until it's over. We are not going to be able, we can tell the story after it passed. But right now, we can't be too sure of what's going to happen next. So we are still learning, and we still have to be careful, wear face masks in the public, and follow other COVID-19 protocols. Thank you.
Okay, I mean, I can hear from everybody's input and experience, anecdotes, etc., that there's a big question for me around just generally mental well-being. I think there's a lot of concern, uncertainty, and that's why we started with the question around how do you prepare, right, for the unknown. There's a lot of concern, uncertainty, and we're still going to live with a lot of uncertainty. And I mean, it's unfortunate, but it seems to be that we're still in the eye of the storm. It hasn't passed. So how do you then prepare yourself, or at least know the red flags? How do you know you're in trouble? What are the telltale signs that say, I'm not okay? And when you've seen that you're not okay, what are some of the things you need to start thinking of doing? And maybe we'll start with you, Shola. Any thoughts there?
What are the red flags? It's I joked about it with my friends recently, but the day you start Googling what is depression, what does depression feel like? That's the biggest red flag. But seriously, I don't think that we can all be I don't think anybody could have been 100% through this whole period. So those dips, recognizing those dips where you're just not, you don't want to communicate, or you just want to, where you're just, how do I put it? You know yourself. You know those things. You know that if you're someone who would be on the phone regularly or chat or do the things, once you're not willing, or you're not interested in doing the things that you would normally do regularly, you should check yourself and check other people as well. So you're checking for your red flags, and you're checking for the red flags of your loved ones. Mental health, and that's what I found through this process is, like I said before, you're learning more about yourself. I'll never think that I'll be that person who will be moody, or who will not want to step out of the house, or just want to, stay. But that's what we're learning about ourselves through this process. So what are those red flags? When you have a routine and you just do not want to stay on your routine, when the things that you love to do, you're not doing them anymore. Those are those kind of things. And what do you do? And so I not like I particularly have the answers, but I'm just talking from experience. But then also in other people, I think that if through all of this, the biggest thing I've said is check on your friends, check on your loved ones as much as you can. It's so important. I can't underestimate the value of checking on your loved ones. And that's what I've learned. And what do you do to make sure that you're able to keep things going? Trying to stick to a schedule, trying to stick to a routine, things that you like to do, keep trying to do it. If you, just exercising, those little things, I think that they help. And talking to people. If you don't want to talk to a professional, talk to your friends. I think that those things are super helpful. Again, I know that we've spoken about every conversation we've had in the past has always spoken to being your authentic self. How do you thrive? What makes you, everything that you're trying to do to be successful, to excel in your career or anything in life. I think that we've always said that where you're able to be your authentic self is the best place that you're able to thrive. Mental health is one of those places where you cannot be your authentic self. So where you're not doing the things that you want to do or you like to do and all of those things, I think that we should look out for it and take care of it so that we are able to be at our best. But yeah, I strongly advocate for checking in with your friends, talking to people around you. I think that there's a lot of value to that and how it helps.
Okay, thanks, Shola. Doctor, what are your thoughts on red flags? What do we look out for? How do you know you're not okay? And once you've ticked those boxes to know, okay, I need to do something, what does that look like?
Okay, so I'll take it from three perspectives of medicine, health practice. One is preventive, two is curative treatment, and then three is rehabilitation. So before it happens at all, okay, so COVID-19 came. As soon as COVID-19 came, what I did, or what everyone should do is, get your team together at work, call an emergency meeting, like a family meeting at work, sensitize your people, show them the video of somebody like Ernest Shackleton. Now, Shackleton was a big story of a survivor of a big turbulence in life and in career. For about 3 years, yes, for about 2 years or more, he was on the sea, in so people wondered where they were. So the first thing is COVID-19 comes, have a meeting, tell your people this is going to be tough. There's nothing we can do about it because it's here. There's nothing we can do. So we need to keep talking about it, and we need to keep sharing things with ourselves, positive information. Don't share negative news. Don't watch negative videos. There's no need to be curious about, what is happening? What are numbers like? Okay? You may need to know what are the new things about COVID? How can I get myself prevented? How can I get treatment if it comes up? Where do I get tested? And things like that. But wanting to know what is happening to people and how they are dying is not going to benefit you. Okay? So you need to prevent, you need to preserve your own mental health. That is the first side. This next side is treatment. Okay? Well, you need to be suspicious. As soon, like Shola said, if you start feeling not like doing the things that you would do normally, you see that you wake up, you're not excited to do what you would have done normally. We were staying at home. All of us were staying at home. But still, you could do a lot. You could interact with family. You could even, for those that will be on their phones, they could send messages and smile and laugh and, check on themselves. But when you start seeing that you're not able to do that, you would rather just sit down and maybe stare in the air, or your heart is beating, Papa, you're feeling palpitations, Papa, your heart is beating fast, you feel sweatiness, you don't feel like eating, you're not interested in things that you normally be interested in, then you may need to seek help. You may need to start first by interacting with people around, your family members around, if you're sure that people that will give you support. You may want to join support group. What I did, one of the things I did was to call my team members at work. We talked and we formed this support group. At home, we had a meeting. My wife and the kids, we had a meeting. We discussed it. This will be challenging. Another thing we did. We made economic plan. And we cut our meals to 2. Because we were not sure of how long the result will last us. I'm an entrepreneur. My wife is an entrepreneur. So what we did was to quickly check. See, our reserve, we don't know when it's going to get exhausted. So we told the kids, we're going to be eating twice daily. Of course, we knew that if the reserve could last us maybe like 3-4 years, yes, we don't make more money. But just what if it lasts us what if it takes longer for COVID to leave us and business doesn't return to normal in the shortest possible time? How can we survive? And the kids, quickly adjusted. Water was something we couldn't really manage. So we knew that, if we don't get treated water, then we'll have to boil our water. Everything was planned, and that's how to go. When tough times comes, just prepare yourself to face it headlong. The third part is, when you get sick, how do you, still on the second part, you get sick, how do you get treated? For COVID, if you get sick emotionally, how do you get treated? Depression, anxiety, whatever it is, see a counselor, see a psychologist, see a therapist, and get yourself treated. It is not a big deal. It's just like malaria. Yes, it's like headache, mental health. It's like malaria, it's like headache. The perspective of people should not matter so much to you. It's your own perspective that matters most. You see, people may think, there's something wrong because you're seeing a psychologist. But what is just wrong is you need to get into the right frame of mind back as you were before. And when you get back into the right frame of mind, you'll be fine. And you can do everything you need to do on a daily basis. Just like malaria. If you take your anti-malaria, you'll be fine in 3 to 4 days. Once in a while, it may take longer. The same thing with this. A positive mindset is necessary. Then let's talk about rehabilitation. somebody had depression and then is treated, is getting better. How does it fit in back to normal life? Whatever happened, maybe he lost his job, maybe whatever happened because of that, you can still gain normal life. Positivity. I'm very, very big on positivity. I tell people there's nothing I can do about it. When something happens, the only way to get back what I've lost is to be positive. When you're positive, you can get up. If you've lost your job, you can look for another job. When I lost my job, how many years ago? 16 years ago. It wasn't so easy. With a family of 3 children, myself and my wife, it wasn't easy. But I just got up, look for another job. Every day you get up, you smile, you say, today is another opportunity to leave. Go out, you're likely to get another job. But if you're sad, like, oh, life is so tough. It's so tough. You're not going to smile when you approach that next job. And the people will not like your face because you're not smiling, no matter how good you are. That's the truth. When you're smiling and you look hopeful, you look optimistic, they'll feel, oh, you can add value to this organization. And they want to give you an opportunity. Even if it's just a day or two, you prove yourself. If you're downcast, it may be tough. I'm not saying to be easy. It may be tough. When you're positive, people see you, they won't hang around you. So the way to go is prevent it. As soon as challenges come up, what can I do so that my mental health will be secured? What can I do so that, okay, this is COVID. What can I do so that I will not get infected? If I get infected, what should I do next? You move to treatment. How do I get treated? If I get affected emotionally, how do I get treated too? When people look at me and feel, oh, maybe I'm mad. I'm not mad. I just have mental health issue. It's like malaria. We need to sell it to ourselves. You may be saying that it's not that easy. See, how many times have you seen you've checked yourself in the mirror and sometimes you don't look fine? All of us. Is there anybody? You check yourself. There are times you won't look fine.
Yeah.
It's not because you're not fine. It's not because you're not beautiful. It's because you're not feeling good in your mind. And if you don't feel good in your mind, you won't feel good in your face. So what people see is what you project. Things may be tough for you. But when you show people that it may be tough, but I'm still smiling. So people feel it's good to associate with you. So treatment and then rehabilitation. We've been thrown down by life. How can I get up? You can be what you used to be. And this is the way to think.
I love that. We'll come back to some summaries there. Love that. Okay. Toela, what are your thoughts on red flags and what to do?
I want to touch a bit on what Dr. Olajobi mentioned about malaria, because it talks into what I wanted to talk about, which is stigma of mental health in the workplace. So Dr. Olajobi, I'm from Zambia, I'm living in South Africa, and I remember once telling one of my friends that I've had malaria before. And they looked at me like I was a leper, like, you've had malaria? So it's interesting because in other African countries, malaria really is like a headache. You pop a pill, you tell people, I've got malaria. There's no stigma attached to malaria. But it's interesting, here in South Africa, malaria is like, whoa, you had malaria. So I just wanted to touch on that. So I wanted to talk about stigma, and it ties in with what you asked, Kanye, for me. And how to notice red flags. What I've picked up is, I'll even talk about myself. It's not easy for people to go out and talk to their colleagues or their friends and say, I'm burnt out, I'm stressed. And I'll tell you, the first 21 days when we had lockdown, I was so paranoid I never left my house. When my husband would go buy groceries, I would sanitize his shoes, the grocery bags, I would wipe things down because I was so afraid of catching COVID. I'm asthmatic, so I'm at high risk. But I never told people this. I just kept it to myself. Whenever I would get scared, is my volume soft? Can you hear me now, Kele?
It looked like it has more bass than tone.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know how to, guys. Is that better?
Oh,
Is that
100%.
yes?
Perfect.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you. Yes. So what I was saying was, there's stigma around mental health. To just even say I'm stressed at work will mean I'm incompetent. I can't do my job. To just even say I'm on antidepressants, you know, it's only when people who have that confidence or courage to come out and say, you know, I'm really stressed, I'm depressed, my doctors put me on antidepressants. And then you will see other people coming out and actually opening up and saying, oh, me too. And one thing I've picked up here in South Africa, also in Zambia, is mental health is considered a white people's disease. So when you come and you start talking about, I find my work is stressing me out, I'm burnt out, I just need to take time off. It's almost like, what, you want to go to Bali for a yoga retreat? You know, there's this stigma that is attached to just being vulnerable and saying, I'm really, really not well. But what I have seen now is more people are coming out and opening up and saying, this is affecting me. I know people who, I saw this on Instagram today, a reel. Someone said they take days off just, you know, when they're burnt out, but they won't tell people at work that I'm burnt out. It's just, no, I took some time off, you know, I just went on holiday or needed to spend time with the kids, but really they are burnt out. So for me, I think just having that courage to just talk about it, because talking really does help. It helps for me when I talk to some of my close friends and then I realize I'm not alone. Even I remember Kanye sharing her story when she came and told us that she had COVID. And it's only when she came out and told other people she had COVID did they say, actually, I had it a couple of months ago. But that's because of that stigma that is associated to these diseases or these conditions. So for me, maybe because I'm an entrepreneur, I think maybe my challenge now for myself is how do I create a workspace that is safe for people to talk about, you know, mental health. I'm really not well. And instead of saying that person has, you know, depressed or stressed, you could maybe change the language a bit so that people feel inclusive and included in the workplace, or even just having support programs. Like, who do I talk to when I'm not feeling well? Who do I call besides my friend? You know, who's a professional that I can reach out to? So those are just some of the things that I'm experiencing when with the red flags. It's when people are very quiet. So you can see that someone is stressed out. You don't see them anymore. When you call them, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. But you can see in their eyes, they're really not fine. So because that's me. How are you, Toa? And I even laugh with my husband. I'm like, if only these people knew how I am. Here I am busy responding to this WhatsApp saying I'm fine when I'm really not fine. So it's for me, it's difficult to signal a red flag, especially in myself, if I don't acknowledge the fact that there is a problem here.
So you've all shared some beautiful nuggets that I think it's worth reflecting on, because sometimes when you're alone with your thoughts, you know, and I think part of it is starting there, being honest with yourself, because we can tell ourselves so many lies and believe them. So it's just about recognizing that for yourself. So I'm going to share what I took away from all of your comments. It will just be highlights. So the first one is, when you know yourself, you need to be authentic. When you know yourself and you can see that you're not responding as you would normally. I think you all touched on that in different forms. recognize it. I'm not okay. So that's the first place to start. The other is you operating out of routine. I mean, the reality is, yes, we're returning to business as usual, but life is unusual. So what does that mean? You know, how do you prepare yourself for that unusual life? And being mindful of shifts that you see in yourself and you see in others. That was shared by Shola, and then I'll share some of the actions of what you could do. Then Doctor shared a 3-pronged framework. I love frameworks, by the way, Doc. So nice one there. Preventative, treatment or corrective, and rehabilitation. So in preventative, where you can, try focus your energy. Don't listen to everything that's out there. I've seen so much fake news, so much, and I'm not an expert. It's about knowing and asking the right questions. Guys, if you have to speak to a virologist, find one, okay? Don't listen to things being posted on social media and take it for gospel. So stay away from negative news. Keep yourself informed so that you are able to deflect or reject things that aren't sincere or honest or authentic. Then corrective. I love what he said about be suspicious. Be suspicious. If something's not right with you, you must check it out, right? Make sure you're aware of what's unusual, what's going on with you. And Shola also touched on it. And the idea of a support group, I think we all need that. And Toa spoke to that too. So think about things like that when you are not yourself. Or actually asking questions that you don't know answers to, or finding yourself maybe going into a negative headspace. And then there's the self perspective. You know, it must be true for you. So you must always have that mirror that says, is this me, or is this not me? Is this reflective of what I stand for and believe in? Do I even know the facts? You know, so introspect in that regard. I thought that was pretty cool. And have a COVID plan. And I want to tie that into Shola's check with your friends. I think that's part of your COVID plan, right? Form a support group. Check with your friends. Is everyone okay? And if you're an entrepreneur, even if when you're not, you don't know what's going to happen. So have a plan. What does this mean for the next 24 months for me and my family and my friends and my colleagues and my business? And then the rehabilitation, positive reinforcement. You know, you have COVID. May have contracted it. What now? What are the critical next steps? And I know people who've gotten themselves that oximeter, I think it's called, just so you know what's going on with your own body, right? And I know if you get to the hospital too late, that can also be a challenge. So positive reinforcement, whatever that looks like, get the treatment. And then I love that analogy about looking in the mirror. You know, you're not always looking good, right? Some days you look better than others, and that's okay. So how do we look in the mirror on a regular basis around our mental health? It's not a bad thing. And that's tying into Toela's insight, you know, the stigma. And I think it's a lot more pronounced in African culture that there's something wrong with you if you're not mentally okay. And if you had to check, a lot of people are not okay. So quite frankly, we are all not okay, you know, in a nutshell. Some days you're better than others. And some days you may need help, and others you may be helping somebody else. And some days you may need treatment. The same way you can pop a pill for malaria, you know, sort yourself out when it comes to mental health. Yeah. By the way, Toa, I was also treated like a leper. I went to the pharmacy to ask the pharmacist for medication, and she literally took 2 steps back when I told her I had COVID 2 weeks. In any case, but I love what Toa is saying, is speaking out. If enough conversations are being had about not being okay, we're going to reach a point where everyone can feel comfortable talking about not being okay, because the reality is a lot of us aren't okay. Have the courage to speak out and create platforms. I love what you were saying about as employer groups, and Doctor also spoke to it. Create support groups. You know, reach out to people, and not everyone will be positively, you know, responding to you, but it's okay as well, you know. Reach out to people, find networks, find supporting people who can help you navigate this journey. If you can afford a professional and you feel comfortable, get a professional. And then talk about mental health. Toa, I think you touched on it, and I think that's part of this conversation that we're having about talking about mental health and not being okay. Can we talk about the gender split, or maybe even the race split? Do we think mental health affects men and women differently? Are there any views, thoughts, perspectives on that? Do you think that, there are people who would have experienced, for example, this COVID pandemic differently? And I know there's a lot of research that says yes, but I would love to hear your thoughts and views. Let's start with you, Doctor. Do men and women experience mental health differently?
Yes, it also depends. There are a lot of factors. Part of it is support group. If people that have support group are able to quickly bounce back, research has also shown that mental health affects people that are in relationships or marriages suffer mental health less than those that are not in relationships or marriages. But of course, we have to put inverted commas, relationships that are supportive, healthy. Yes, thank you. Healthy relationships. Yes, because those partners will give support when the person is going through challenges. Men don't present as much as women. Yes, women present in the hospital, even for physical illnesses, more than men. Men, we have ego, we're stubborn, and so men don't present as much as women. So sometimes you may just think that there are more women that are sick, whereas there are men who are battling with it, but they will not speak out. And of course, it affects a lot of things in our society too, as men don't speak up and don't seek help. Women seek help more, and they're able to get help and recover quickly. Yeah.
Okay. Toela, what's your experience? Do men and women present differently in your experience?
But the interesting, I'm telling you, I think COVID was a blessing in disguise, because of late, I mean, in our school group, one of the guys sent a message, literally, he just said, how is everyone from a mental health perspective? And, the women, we just opened up. We were like, oh, I'm going through this, I'm going through that. But the other guys in the group kept quiet. But I must give him kudos for coming out and asking, because he was acknowledging that, there is a mental health issue. I will also talk about personally, like my friends, male friends and male family members. Nowadays are more open to talking about how they're feeling now during COVID. Before, no, everything is fine. I got this. But at least now, how are you doing? Oh, yeah, no, it's stressful. I got retrenched. Oh, really? How did that impact you? Oh, no, really. How the kids, wifey? So now more men are actually coming out and talking about it, and even saying, I actually checked myself into a wellness clinic for 21 days. Do you know medical aid can cover it? Really? Oh, wow. No, I did not know that. So I think now with COVID, because there's a lot of mental health issues flying around, more men now are more comfortable talking about the challenges they are facing.
Shalabomi?
For me, from experience, or just from conversations, what I noticed is there was a short window where men were a bit more vulnerable. And I think it was during that whole lockdown, the whole uncertainty of that period. And why I'll say that is, I realized that, I was speaking to a spa owner, and she was talking about the number of men that came in for spa treatments. So I'll take that as a way of letting out. But also, on the flip side, I think that what I noticed is, obviously, women are more expressive. So I'm talking to my girlfriends regularly about things that affect me and the way that affects me. For men, I think it's more I don't know, I don't want to generalize, but there's a bit of going and focusing on vices rather than solving the problem. So you then find that more people are drinking more or doing or whatever those vices are. And yeah, so that's kind of the trend that kind of seen. But I think that there was a window that allowed for vulnerability and where people were, especially, just talking to people, there was that window of vulnerability that people keyed into and hopefully it helped people more. But to your question, yes, women are more expressive when it comes to mental health, and they're more, they're more intentional about taking care of their mental health. That's my perspective, or from what I know from my girlfriends.
I love that, because that's a nice segue for us into some of the questions. We've got 2 questions. I'll start with the second one, and I'll ask you, Doctor, to please respond to this question. The question is, any tips for making yourself vulnerable without compromising yourself too much when it comes to mental well-being?
Okay, so I believe that you want to be sure of the people you're talking to. Being vulnerable. I mean, I believe the person means speaking up, right?
Yeah.
Right? So
yes.
You want to be sure that if it's a family member, it's somebody who is very empathetic, not somebody who is going to judge you, who is going to condemn you and say it's your fault. If it's a doctor, a therapist, you want to be sure that the person has a track record of good treatment, because, like Kanye said, we're all sick. It's just that we are more sick at some other time. We are more sick than ourselves at some time. So you may find, I have seen somebody who is supposed to be a therapist. I couldn't attend to one of my family members, and so I took the person to a therapy, or I went to see a therapist so I could link him up with the person, and the engagement was poor, and I felt I wouldn't take my family member to this person, because the person himself needs therapy. The therapist himself needs therapy. Once he is able to go through some therapy, he may not be able to do well for anybody that needs therapy. So that's, I think, those are the things to look for. This person's track record. You've heard maybe a friend or family member that has listened to him, has gone through treatment with him, or you've followed up on the person over time and you've seen that, okay, you are not going to be, you're safe, yes, because you will be with the person that is going to help you in a safe room. It should be a safe room. Someone that won't judge you. Someone that will give you the free space to just thrive. That is the kind of person you need. Yes, that's it.
Okay. Another question that we have, thank you, Doctor, is from Dan Mukosa. How do we start breaking down the stigma when it comes to mental health and well-being? Shola, any thoughts?
Yeah, so how do we break down? Yeah, so continuous conversations. Yes. In this part of the world, it's not, there is no, we don't have that flick to turn things around or make it as acceptable as it is in the West. So that continuous conversations to let people know it's okay not to be okay, and it's okay to keep talking to people. So just continuous conversations and talking to the right people. And with time, I think that people begin to realize, especially I think that by the end of this whole COVID episode, we will see a bit of a change, and hopefully we can build on that change. But again, I find that during COVID, people needed to talk, and I did even get people that started saying, oh, I'm talking to this person. I actually didn't know we had that many therapists, at least in this side of the world in Nigeria. And it's just been interesting to find. And it wasn't because of anything. Some people just wanted to just make sure that everyone else was going through what they were going through, and it wasn't anything major. So just conversations. So we just need to keep talking to each other, and hopefully it'll cascade through, and we'll all meander through this together and figure it out.
Toela, this next question is for you. how does one know that mental health is a problem in their work? I think the question, and if you can clarify, please, Anonymous, how does one know that there's a mental health issue in their workplace? Is that the question, or are you saying the question is how do you know that the environment is unhealthy? Because there's two different things. But we'll take it for granted that it's how do you know you're not well in the workplace. Cool. Toela, thoughts on that?
Does one know that mental health is a problem in their work? I think maybe the biggest telltale sign, I'll use myself as an example, is when I have so much on my plate, and when I look at my calendar, it's like there's no space in between, like even for lunch. There's just meeting after meeting, and there's a deliverable, like you've got so much work that, you know, you start feeling overwhelmed. And I think for me, that's a first sign. And then also when you start dropping the ball, you will know that you're dropping the ball because you will get feedback from either your manager, your customers, or your colleagues. You may not think you're dropping the ball, but maybe you are. So if you start also getting feedback from people around you, around the quality of work, when you know before you were very good at delivering, and that could also be a sign that maybe things are not going too well for you at the workplace. The other thing that should help is team leads or managers should try and also come to the party and notice when people are stressed or when people are burnt out. The other thing is if you find any excuse not to do any work, for people who go to the office where you give excuse to say, no, I want to work from home, or no, I can't come in today, or I'm not feeling well. If you now start giving excuses to not do the work or face the people at work, that could also be a sign that maybe things are not okay. And just cutting it short, try and talk to someone about it, that you feel safe, like what Dr. Olajobi was saying. Once you start noticing that, hey, there's a problem here. Interestingly enough, there was an HR woman I was speaking to, and she was telling me that during COVID, productivity levels have just gone up the roof. And, you know, this whole COVID thing, we've really seen productivity go up. And I asked, I said, what about your burnout levels? Like, have you measured that as well? Because people now are working more hours because there's no break. Before we could, you know, drive in our cars, you know, at least you've got maybe an hour, 30 minutes break away from work. But now work is at home and there's no break. There are people who put meetings back to back where you don't even give yourself time. I don't know if you've got, if you use Outlook, there's this thing where you can set time, me time, like literally in your calendar, you put me time, it blocks it out, and you've got like 30 minutes to do whatever. Go for a walk, whatever, go read a book. But that's because we are getting burnt out because we're just overworking.
Sure. Well, I know we're over time, but I'd love for you to share at least one nugget with us after having had this conversation for an hour. One thing that you would like people to take away from this conversation about their well-being, about COVID times, just generally about how to survive the next while. We'll start with you, Doctor. One nugget.
Okay, I would say that people should know themselves and keep working on a better version of themselves every day. When you keep doing that, your mental health will be good, and you will be able to cope under most circumstances.
Thank you, Doctor. Tolabomi? One nugget.
Yes. One nugget, I'll say, do not put yourself under pressure. It's okay not to be okay. If you need a break, take a break. Resilience is not always something to strive for. When you're not feeling up to it, please take a break.
Thank you, Shola. Tawela?
I think just talk. Let's start talking about it. And the more we talk about it, the more it will become like malaria. So let's keep talking.
Okay, well, I want to firstly thank everybody for joining us and for staying with us during the course of this conversation. It's an important one, and I think we'll continue to have it in different forms. So thank you for joining us. Again, knowing that you're doing your best and your body's doing its best is important. Knowing yourself is important. So look in the mirror now and then, and know some days will be better than others. And if you need to reach out, reach out. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening. Thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us. We really appreciate all of the content and the nuggets. And we look forward to having another conversation of this nature.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.